What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we'll be joined by Brian Kamenetzky from Locked On Lakers to take a look at the LeBron James extension and what that means for LeBron's future in LA, what that says about his confidence in the organization. But first, a quick message from our friends over at Rocket Money. If you keep saying that you need to make a budget but never do it, if somehow you keep missing credit card payments, if you're afraid to even look at your bank statement, then it's time to take back control of your financial life. Meet Rocket Money, formerly Truebill, our favorite financial app. So why did Truebill change its name to Rocket Money? Truebill, now backed by Rocket Companies, has grown from a bill management app into a full-on personal finance empowerment tool that helps over 3.4 million people with budgeting, lowering bills, canceling subscriptions, and more, saving each of their members on average $700 a year. And with all that growth comes the next evolution in Truebill's story, a new name. Bottom line, Rocket Money is everything about Truebill, but with a fresh new look and feel. Start canceling your unused subscriptions and save money at rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba, or download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play Store. Joining us now is Brian Kamenetzky from Locked On Lakers. You can follow him and his brother, his co-host at Locked On Lakers, both at Cam Brothers on Twitter. Now, Brian, LeBron signing an extension to stay with the LA Lakers, 2-year contract extension, just under $100 million, making him the highest paid NBA player in history. Player option in year 2. What does LeBron inking his extension, took a little while for him to sign it, but he finally inked the extension. What does it say about his confidence in this Lakers situation, the organization moving forward, and kind of how Rob Pelinka and the rest of the front office kind of plan to navigate things with this team?
Sure. The first thing I would do is actually push back a little bit on like it took a little while part, because that's actually something that I've seen in a lot of different places, and even with a lot of fans, but it really didn't. Like the Lakers could make this offer on the 4th of August, and I presume that they did. Basically took like 2 weeks. Like, it could have gone into the season, it could have gone through training camp, through December, through the playoffs, through the like all of this stuff. So relatively speaking, I think it was a pretty quick process and pretty painless. This was the contract I expected that he would sign, with that extra year as an option. They can kind of see what Bronny's up to, in that first year of eligibility when he might be able to get in the league. But if he doesn't, then he can just stay with the Lakers for another. He's got flexibility. The Lakers get a little bit of certainty. They can do something like go out and sacrifice cap space, whatever they might have for next off season or even 2 off seasons, in a Kyrie Irving deal and something. Maybe that allows them to pick up a couple extra players that this roster really, really needs. Because regardless of what the Lakers do, it's not just a guy like Irving or whether Buddy Hield or Miles Turner. They need as many good players as they can possibly get. And so that probably would mean eating into cap space for next summer, for the following summer, which you are obviously more willing to do if you're secure that LeBron is at least going to be there for those seasons.
Does this make it, in your eyes, more or maybe even less likely that, a Russell Westbrook, solution is potentially on the horizon, given, James is saying, hey, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to be here for at least the next couple of years. And we know that, Russ is on the hook for this next season. So maybe the Lakers could punt on this next season and just run it back and have Russ be there, in whatever role they decide he can, actually take, whether that's actually continuing to start, coming off the bench, whatever. Maybe they put him on ice and they give him the John Wall treatment just because he's too detrimental to the success of the team. Whatever that situation may be, they could punt on it and then have that cap space next summer to play with. But it seems, it wouldn't seem to be the best idea punting on another year of LeBron James in his, seventh prime?
Something like that. And I saw something like, the other day, like he's primed to have like the best 20th season in NBA history. I'm like, how many are we choosing from? But yeah, I agree. But the longevity here is amazing. I don't think one has a whole lot to do with the other in terms of confidence that Westbrook is going to be moved, or a belief that LeBron is taking pressure off. I just feel like LeBron looked at the landscape. He knows the Lakers are trying to trade Westbrook. He knows the Lakers would offer that second pick to Brooklyn if it meant Kyrie Irving. And when push comes to shove, maybe they'll do it with Indiana, but there's no reason to make the Indiana deal for Buddy Hield, Miles Turner. There's no reason to do that quickly because nobody else is threatening to take those players away from the Lakers. There's been zero reporting that other teams around the league are going to swoop in and take Buddy Hield or Miles Turner away from Pelinka and the Lakers. And if that were to be the case, then the Lakers would have to decide. But I think the most underrated thing about this is LeBron likes it in Los Angeles. His family likes it in Los Angeles. His businesses are here. He's got a lot of stuff that goes on here. He doesn't want to uproot his family again. He's got kids in school, and he doesn't want to be away from his family. And so you start to put all of those things together. He didn't come to LA specifically because of the Lakers or because the Lakers gave him the best opportunity to win. That wasn't the case when he signed the deal originally with the Lakers. It's certainly not the case now. He hopes both things can be true at once, but I think ultimately trying to read stuff into the possibility of a Westbrook trade based on the fact that he signed the extension. I don't think there's a lot there because I just don't see one as having a whole lot to do with the other. Lakers will trade Westbrook if they can. Doing that is not easy. I mean, nobody wants him.
Yeah, or it'd be done by now, right? And obviously the biggest holdup in all of this is Kevin Durant and how that situation pans out.
Or Donovan Mitchell, if there's the Utah deal. I mean, all this stuff. The Lakers have very little. LeBron understands this. The Lakers have very little to do with the timing of any of these trades, except for, I suppose, something with Indiana.
And you mentioned the word kind of pressure there, and any potential pressure on LeBron or on the organization, on LA to maybe make one of these deals, and kind of the Indiana one being the one that is maybe doable right now, but compared to the other two,
probably want to wait to see can they inject themselves into a Brooklyn deal? Can they inject themselves into something with Utah? Like there's no rush for them either. So I presume that that's a possibility only because those two guys aren't necessarily attached to any other team. They're not like big superstars that are on the block, but I don't know for sure that that's actually true.
So then I guess when does the pressure potentially set in for the Lakers, right? This is a team that, missed the playoffs last year. Like it's when does that happen where, if they get off to a bad start in the season, do they kind of maybe break the emergency glass button and say, okay, we've got to deal Russ now? Like when does that happen in your eyes?
You mean related to LeBron or just
no, related to the Lakers, I guess, and just feeling the pressure to, rather than
that
ride
part of
things
it's already
out with
happening.
Rush.
Like
okay.
There will be fans at the opening, when the Lakers open, I think it's October 20th or whatever it is against the Clippers at the Crypt. They're going to be Lakers fans with torches and pitchforks there if Westbrook is still on the team. Like people are upset about it now. There's just nothing they can do about it. And that's the thing. It's like the pressure is there. Everybody knows that this team is not good enough. Even if everything goes well, they're not good enough to win the Western Conference. I mean, without just crazy, bizarre things happening throughout the conference. So that's already there, but this is the bed that they made. They knew, or should have known, that when they made this trade last year, and it was a terrible idea when they did it, that this was a 2-year commitment, that they were on the hook for a couple seasons, because if it doesn't work, you're married to Westbrook because you can't get rid of him. And so it failed in, I would like to think, more spectacular fashion than they anticipated. But that doesn't change the fact that they still don't have a lot of ability to change the landscape of it, because this is the deal that they made.
Yeah, trading for Russ was, a deal that was either going to work out incredibly well or as you said,
funny. Like I always make
spectacular
this joke,
fashion.
I always make the joke, like our most downloaded podcast episode of 2021 or whatever it was the day after they traded for Russell Westbrook. Our second most downloaded podcast was the one we did like 4 days before that, when the rumors were starting to really pick up about how it couldn't possibly be true because that was such a terrible idea. So like those were the two most downloaded shows that we did last year.
The duality of Russell Westbrook and of Locked On Lakers. But Brian, when you look at this, just this situation and also just the NBA landscape, does what's currently going on with KD, what we've seen happen with James Harden. Hey, wouldn't you know what happened with Anthony Davis as he found his way to the LA Lakers? Do those situations maybe make you a little less confident that this deal means that LeBron's going to be there for these next 2 years? Like if the situation becomes completely untenable in LA, do you think there might be a world where LeBron's like, all right, get me out of here?
No, I mean, maybe. I mean, but untenable, like it's got like when you say completely untenable, like it's got to be like as untenable gets. Because the other thing about this is, and I think this is also something that LeBron understands, where's he going to go? He's, pushing 40. He's stated that wherever Bronny plays, once Bronny's in the league, I'm going to go there. So, or I'm going to try really, really damn hard to do it. So you don't have, it's not like you get LeBron for 4 years, So who's going to give up a lot to get him? That's part of the problem. He's an extraordinarily difficult player to trade at this point. And, is he going to go sign? Let's say he opts out of that second year. Lakers can't trade him this year. And so, just for the CBA rules. So maybe that next season, if it's really bad, he demands a trade, but to where? He's going to be a free agent. Well, maybe if he says, okay, I'll opt into that last year or whatever, I'll waive the opt out. Well, okay, well, then is he going to be able to go play with? Like, there's just, and even then, how much are you going to give up for 2 years of LeBron? How many teams can absorb him and I think LeBron understands this. And I don't think he wants to put himself out there in a situation where actually nobody wants you quite as much as you want. And he understands he kind of made this situation, at least to some degree in LA, be it by pushing for the Westbrook deal. And finally, he's a made guy. He's got the legacy already. He doesn't need another title to cement something. Anybody who thinks he's better than Jordan already does. Anybody who doesn't isn't going to change that with one more ring. So I feel like he's content here. He's late in career. He wants that one special season at the end of it and retain the flexibility to do it. LA's as good a place as any. So I'd be surprised if that happened. It would have to go really bad.
How will the situation play out for LeBron James and the LA Lakers this upcoming season? What does this extension look like, the life of it over these next couple of years in LA? And yeah, does Bronny eventually leave town? Does LeBron eventually leave town to go team up with Bronny Jr. somewhere else? You're going to have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Lakers. Brian, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Thanks a lot.